My name is Ashley, and at 29 years old, I never thought I'd be treated like an intruder in the family home where I grew up in our traditional Philadelphia suburb house with its wide porch and echoes of old East Coast values. I always sensed I mattered less than my younger brother, but that dinner hit hard. My usual spot at the table handed over to his wife without a word. They looked right at me and said, "No more room for useless people." I stood up quietly, grabbed my things to leave until Grandma slowly stood up, called me back and handed me a paper. "It's yours," she said firmly. I smiled for the first time that night. 1 week later, the lawyer called. The whole house went crazy. Before I dive into my story, I'd love to know what time it is where you're listening and which city you're in. It's exciting to see how far my story reaches. The house in our Philadelphia suburb was more than just bricks and mortar. It was where Joshua and I built our world as kids. My younger brother Joshua was only 2 years behind me, and back then we were thick as thieves. We'd spend afternoons in the backyard kicking a soccer ball around or building forts out of old blankets and chairs from the garage. I remember one summer when he was 8 and I was 10, we turned the porch into a pirate ship complete with a flag made from Mom's old scarf. We'd yell commands at each other, laughing until our sides hurt, and chase imaginary enemies across the lawn. Joshua was the kind of kid who followed me everywhere, and I loved it. I'd pull him on his bike when he couldn't keep up, or we'd sit under the big oak tree sharing comic books, trading panels back and forth. School was our shared battleground too. When bullies picked on him in 3rd grade for his glasses, I stepped in without thinking, telling them off in front of everyone. He did the same for me once. When some girls teased me about my braces, he marched right up and said they were jealous. Our bond was unbreakable, the kind that made neighbors comment on how lucky our parents were to have siblings who got along so well. Mom and Dad James and Mary ran a tight ship. Dad worked as an engineer at a local firm, commuting into the city every day, while Mom handled event planning from home, juggling client calls with our schedules. They weren't overly affectionate, but they had clear expectations. As we hit our teens, though, cracks started showing. Joshua joined the high school baseball team and became the star pitcher, drawing crowds to games where Dad would cheer loudest. I'd hear him bragging to friends about Joshua's home runs while my straight A's in English and art classes got a quick nod at best. "Good job, Ashley, but focus on something practical," Dad would say, barely looking up from his newspaper. I threw myself into creative projects like designing posters for school events or starting a small blog about local history. But Mom would pull me aside during family dinners, whispering, "Men prefer women who aren't so outspoken, tone it down." Meanwhile, when Joshua shared his opinions on sports or politics at the table, it was showing initiative. The double standard wore on me. By senior year, while Joshua was scouted for college teams near home, I applied to schools out west, landing a spot in a marketing program in Los Angeles. The day I packed my car for the drive across country felt like freedom, but also a quiet goodbye to the closeness we once had. Joshua stayed local, attending a university just 30 minutes away where Mom and Dad attended every game. He majored in business following Dad's advice for a stable path and graduated with offers from firms in the area. I visited less often, building my career in LA at a digital marketing agency where I climbed to account manager, handling campaigns for eco-friendly brands. My salary let me afford a cozy apartment near the beach, but trips home highlighted the gap. "Marketing? That's just ads. When are you getting a real job back here?" Dad scoffed during one call. Mom added, "Joshua's balancing work and life so well. You should learn from him." The favoritism stung more as years passed. Joshua got help with his first car, down payment from our parents, while I scraped by on student loans. At holidays, his stories dominated conversations, promotions, weekend trips, while my updates about client wins were met with polite smiles and quick subject changes. Once, after I shared a big project success, Mom said, "That's nice, dear, but Joshua just closed a deal that could lead to partnership." It built up, making phone calls tense and visits rare. I defended myself in arguments, pointing out the unfairness, but Dad dismissed it as overreacting. Joshua, who once had my back, started echoing them. "Come on, Ashley, you're doing fine out there. Stop making it about you." One heated call after I skipped Thanksgiving stood out. I explained my work deadline, but Mom snapped, "Joshua always makes time for family. Why can't you?" I hung up, feeling invisible, deciding to limit contact to birthdays and quick texts. It protected my peace but deepened the rift. Joshua messaged occasionally, but conversations felt forced, like we were strangers sharing DNA. As he got serious with his girlfriend, I sensed things shifting further, wondering if marriage would seal my outsider status for good. That pattern of favoritism wasn't new. It started small in childhood, but grew as our paths diverged. Joshua's choices aligned with what Mom and Dad valued, staying close, traditional stability. Mine they saw as rebellion. After one particularly rough visit where Dad questioned my LA lifestyle again, I vowed to keep more distance, focusing on my life out west. Little did I know Joshua's upcoming wedding would crank the tension higher, setting the stage for the explosion at that family dinner. When my younger brother Joshua proposed to his girlfriend Brittany, the family shifted into overdrive. Their engagement party was a big deal in our Philadelphia suburb. Mom planned it like a military operation with catered food and a string quartet on the lawn. I flew in from LA for the weekend feeling like a guest at my own family's event. Brittany, with her polished smile and business degree from a local college, was everything Mom and Dad had hoped for in a daughter-in-law. She was charming, put together, and knew exactly how to win them over, bringing homemade cookies to Sunday dinners and offering to help Mom with holiday plans. From the moment they met her, Brittany could do no wrong. At the engagement party, Mom gushed over her, saying, "She's so thoughtful. Ashley, you should take notes." Dad nodded, already discussing business connections with Brittany's colleagues. Meanwhile, I stood on the sidelines holding a glass of wine, feeling like an extra in their perfect family movie. I barely knew Brittany. We'd exchanged maybe a dozen words before the engagement, but Mom insisted I be a bridesmaid. "Don't talk too much about your LA job at the wedding," she advised, adjusting my dress. "It's their day, not yours." The wedding was a spectacle, covered by local event blogs, with me in a pastel dress I'd never wear again. I smiled for photos, said the right things, and caught a red eye back to LA the next morning, promising myself I'd limit visits. Brittany's takeover didn't stop after the wedding. She and Joshua bought a house 15 minutes from Mom and Dad, and Sunday dinners became her stage. Mom started asking Brittany's opinion on everything: table settings, vacation plans, even Dad's retirement investments. Joshua beamed at her like she was the sun, while my attempts to join conversations fell flat. Once, when I mentioned a big campaign I'd led at work, Brittany cut in with, "Oh, that sounds cute, Ashley, but I was just telling Mary about our new kitchen remodel." Mom nodded eagerly and the topic shifted. It wasn't just dinners. My old bedroom, where I'd spent hours sketching designs as a teen, was turned into Brittany's home office when they stayed over. I found out when I arrived for a rare visit and saw my books and posters packed into boxes in the basement. "We needed the space," Mom explained, not meeting my eyes. "Brittany's working on big projects and you're hardly here." I bit back my frustration, but it hurt to see my childhood erased without a heads up. Dad didn't comment, just sipped his coffee and flipped through his phone. The final straw came during a call with my colleague Ryan back in LA. I vented about feeling pushed out, and he suggested I talk to Grandma Patricia, the one person who always seemed to get me. She'd moved into the guest house after her husband passed, saying the main house felt too empty. On my next visit, I helped her sort through old boxes in her attic, hoping for a distraction. That's when I found a yellowed folder tucked under some photo albums, a legal document with my name on it tied to the house. It was vague, mentioning a trust and ownership, but the details were unclear, like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't solve. "Don't worry about that now," Grandma Patricia said, quickly taking the folder. "Just some old paperwork." Her tone was odd-guarded, and it planted a seed of curiosity I couldn't shake. After that, I kept my distance even more, sticking to phone calls with Grandma Patricia. She'd ask about my latest campaigns, her voice warm with pride. "You're building something real out there," she'd say, unlike Mom's sighs or Dad's lectures about moving back. Joshua and Brittany, meanwhile, grew tighter, with Mom and Dad planning family events I wasn't invited to until the last minute. Brittany's comments got sharper, too. Through a cousin who still texted me, I heard she called me the LA dreamer behind my back, mocking my career as playing with social media. In person, she'd smile and say things like, "Your job sounds so fun, Ashley, not everyone needs a corner office." It was subtle, but it landed like a jab every time. My calls with Ryan became my lifeline. He'd listen as I unpacked the growing disconnect, offering advice like, "Focus on your life in LA, they don't define you." I tried throwing myself into work, landing bigger clients and buying a small condo with my savings. But the family rift gnawed at me. I'd scroll through Joshua's social media, seeing photos of him and Brittany at Mom and Dad's, all smiles, in the house where I no longer fit. I stopped coming home for holidays, citing work, and sent gifts instead: books for Mom, gadgets for Dad. They'd thank me with brief texts, but the warmth was gone. Then out of the blue, Mom called on a Tuesday evening. Her voice was unusually urgent. "Ashley, we're having a special family dinner this Saturday. You need to be here. No holidays, no birthdays, just a random invite. It's important," she pressed. "Everyone will be together." Something in her tone, a mix of insistence and nerve, sparked both suspicion and a flicker of hope. Maybe they wanted to mend things. Against my better judgment, I rearranged my schedule, delegated a project to Ryan, and booked a flight to Philadelphia. I had no idea that dinner would turn everything upside down. I landed in Philadelphia on Friday night, my stomach knotted with a mix of hope and dread. Mom's urgent call about the special family dinner had me rearranging my entire week, handing off a major campaign to Ryan, and booking a last-minute flight from LA. The taxi ride from the airport wound through familiar suburban streets past colonial houses with neat lawns until we pulled up to the family home, its white columns and wide porch glowing under the streetlights. I'd grown up here, but stepping out with my suitcase, it felt more like a museum than a home. Inside, the house buzzed with an energy I hadn't expected. Mom was in the kitchen arranging a floral centerpiece that must have cost a fortune. She gave me a quick hug, her perfume sharp and familiar. "Ashley, you made it," she said, eyeing my simple black dress. "That's nice. Everyone's in the dining room." No criticism, which was odd, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. I followed her, bracing myself for whatever this dinner was really about. The dining room was set like it was Christmas, with the good china crystal glasses and candles flickering in silver holders. Dad stood at the head of the table pouring wine, while Joshua and his wife Brittany sat close on one side, her hand resting on his arm. Grandma Patricia was already seated, her expression calm but watchful. Joshua glanced up as I entered. "Hey, good to see you," he said, his tone casual, like we hadn't gone months with barely a text. Brittany offered a tight smile, her hand subtly brushing her stomach. That's when it clicked, she was pregnant. This dinner wasn't just a catch-up. "Sit here," Ashley, Mom directed, pointing to a chair at the far end next to Grandma Patricia. It was the guest spot, not my usual place by Dad. I hesitated, glancing at Brittany, who was settled comfortably in my old seat. "Oh, Ashley, you don't mind, do you?" Brittany said, her voice sweet but sharp. "It's just easier for me here, you know, with the baby coming." Her hand patted her stomach again, drawing all eyes. I swallowed hard and took the guest chair, Grandma Patricia giving my hand a quick squeeze under the table. Dad raised his glass for a toast. "To family," he said, looking straight at Brittany and Joshua. "And to new chapters." Joshua grinned, standing up. "We've got news," he announced, his arm around Brittany. "We're expecting. Baby's due in October." The room erupted in cheers. Mom's eyes welled up as she hugged Brittany. "A grandchild," she said, voice thick. "I'm going to be a grandmother." Dad clapped Joshua on the back, already talking about family names. I forced a smile, murmuring congratulations, but the air felt heavy. No one asked about my life in LA, my recent promotion, or even how my flight was. I was there but invisible. Dinner started, plates passed around with roast chicken and mashed potatoes. The conversation stayed laser-focused on the baby, nursery plans, doctor visits, whether it'd be a boy to carry on the family. Brittany leaned into it, saying, "We're already checking preschools. The good ones have waitlists years out." Mom nodded eagerly. "James can pull strings at the academy. Connections matter." I picked at my food, feeling like a stranger at my own family's table. When I tried to join in, sharing a memory of Joshua and me building a treehouse as kids, he barely acknowledged it, steering back to baby names. Then the conversation shifted and my stomach dropped. Dad set down his fork. "This house is perfect for a growing family," he said, looking at Joshua. 5 bedrooms, a big yard, ideal for kids." Mom chimed in. "We've been thinking, James and I. Maybe it's time we downsize, get a condo in the city. You and Brittany could move in here." I froze my fork halfway to my mouth. "What about Grandma Patricia?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. "She's lived in the guest house since Grandpa died. It's her home." Dad waved a hand. "We'll find something suitable for her. A nice retirement place nearby." Grandma Patricia's eyes narrowed, but she stayed silent. I couldn't. Suitable. "You're talking about kicking her out of her own space for Joshua's family." My voice rose, drawing stares. Brittany's smile tightened. "Ashley, you're not here much, so maybe you don't get it. We're planning for the future, for the next generation. You've made it clear you're fine on your own in LA." Her tone dripped with condescension. "That's not the point," I snapped. "This is about fairness. Grandma deserves a say." Mom's face hardened. "Ashley, this is a family matter. You don't get to dictate what we do when you're barely part of this family." The words hit like a punch. "Barely part of it," I echoed. "I flew across the country for this dinner, and you're telling me I don't belong." Brittany leaned forward, her voice icy. "No more room for useless people, Ashley. You chose to leave. We're building something real here." Silence fell heavy and suffocating. Joshua looked at his plate, saying nothing. Dad sipped his wine, avoiding my gaze. I set my napkin down, hands shaking. If I'm so useless, I'll go. I stood, pushing my chair back, and headed for the stairs to grab my suitcase. The hurt burned, but I wouldn't let them see me break. I was almost at the front door when Grandma Patricia's voice stopped me. Ashley, wait. She stood in the hallway, her steps slow but deliberate. Come with me for a moment. There's something you need to know. Grandma Patricia led me to the quiet of the living room, away from the dining room's tension. The familiar antique clock ticked softly, grounding me as my hands still trembled from the fight. She sat me down on the old leather couch, her eyes steady but kind. Ashley, there's something I've kept from the family, she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. After my husband passed, I never got around to changing the house's deed. It's been in a trust, and it's yours has been since I set it up years ago. She pulled a folded paper from her sweater pocket, worn at the edges, and handed it to me. I saw how they treated you, always favoring Joshua. I wanted to make sure you had something solid. I stared at the document, my name printed clearly as the beneficiary of a trust for the house. It wasn't a full will, just a preliminary agreement, but it was enough to make my head spin. Why me? I asked, my voice catching. Why not Joshua or Mom and Dad? Grandma Patricia's expression hardened. Because you've been pushed aside your whole life for being yourself. I wanted you to have power, a place they can't take away. Her words hit deep, a mix of validation and weight I wasn't ready for. I clutched the paper, unsure what to say, when footsteps interrupted us. Mom appeared in the doorway, her face tight with suspicion. What's going on? She demanded. Grandma Patricia stood slow but firm. It's time you all knew. This house doesn't belong to you or James. It's Ashley's by my decision. The air shifted. Dad stormed in, his wineglass still in hand. That's ridiculous, he snapped. This is our home. You can't just rewrite history. Joshua and Brittany followed her arms, crossed eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? Joshua asked, his tone sharp, like I'd stolen something from him. It's legal, Grandma Patricia said calmly. I set up the trust after my husband died, and Ashley's the beneficiary. The paperwork's been filed, but you'll need to talk to my lawyer for the rest. Dad's face reddened. This is insane. You're saying you gave our family home to her? He pointed at me like I'd planned it. Mom's voice shook. Patricia, please don't do this now. We're celebrating a new baby. Don't tear us apart. Brittany stepped forward, her smile gone. Ashley, you can't seriously think you'll take this house. We're starting a family here. You're off in LA doing whatever it is you do. I opened my mouth to respond, but Joshua cut in. Come on, Ashley, let's be reasonable. We can share the house, work something out. You don't even live here. His tone was softer, but it felt like a tactic, not concern. I looked at Grandma Patricia, then back at them. I didn't ask for this, I said, holding up the paper. But I'm not the one tearing anything apart. You did that when you called me useless. Mom flinched but didn't speak. Dad threw up his hands. This is a mistake. We'll talk to the lawyer ourselves. The room felt suffocating. I folded the paper and tucked it into my pocket. I'm done here, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I'm going back to LA. Brittany scoffed. Running away again? Typical. I ignored her, grabbing my suitcase from the foyer. Grandma Patricia followed me to the door. Wait for the lawyer's call, she whispered. It's all in place. I nodded, too overwhelmed to say more, and stepped out into the chilly Philadelphia night, calling a taxi to the airport. On the flight back, I couldn't sleep. The paper burned a hole in my pocket, its weight both empowering and heavy. Back in LA, I called Ryan, my voice shaking as I told him everything, the dinner, the fight, the trust. They really said that to you, he asked, stunned. Ashley, you don't owe them anything. Focus on what's next. His words grounded me, but my mind kept racing. What did it mean to own the house I'd been pushed out of? I spent the next week jumping every time my phone rang, expecting the worst. Then exactly 7 days later, the call came. A lawyer's voice, calm and professional, confirmed it. The trust is airtight, Ms. Thompson. The house is legally yours. My heart pounded. I knew what was coming. My family wouldn't let this go quietly. The lawyer's call came exactly 1 week after that disastrous dinner, his voice crisp and professional over the phone. Ms. Thompson, I've reviewed the trust documents. The house in Philadelphia is legally yours, as per your grandmother's instructions. The paperwork is airtight. My heart thumped in my chest, a strange mix of relief and dread washing over me. I was sitting in my LA condo, sunlight streaming through the window, but my mind was back in that colonial house with its wide porch and heavy history. What's next? I asked, gripping the phone. You decide, he replied. You're the sole beneficiary. I'll send you the final documents. I thanked him, hung up, and stared at my coffee table, the folded paper from Grandma Patricia still tucked in my bag. I knew my family wouldn't let this slide. The chaos started within hours. My phone buzzed with a call from Dad. "Ashley, this is nonsense," he said, his voice sharp with anger. "You can't just take our home. We're talking to our attorney. This won't stand." I stayed calm though my pulse raced. "Dad, it's legal. Grandma made her choice." He scoffed. "Your grandmother's lost her mind. We've lived here for decades. You're in LA, you don't need a house here." His words echoed the dinner, that same dismissal, and I felt the old hurt flare up. Before I could respond, he hung up, leaving me staring at a blank screen. Mom called next, her tone softer but desperate. "Ashley, please, let's talk about this. We're a family. We can work it out." Her voice cracked like she was on the verge of tears, but it felt like a performance. "Mom, you told me there was no room for me," I said quietly. "You made it clear where I stand." She started to protest, but I cut her off. "I need time." I ended the call, my hands shaking. Joshua's message came an hour later, a long text pleading for a compromise. "Brittany and I are starting a family," he wrote. "This house means everything to us. Let's share it, Ashley. You're my sister. Don't do this." It was the first time he'd called me his sister in years, but it rang hollow like a last-ditch effort to keep control. Brittany's call was the worst. "You're really going to steal our future," she snapped, her voice dripping with venom. "We're having a baby, Ashley. You're off in LA with your little marketing job, and you think you can just take our home." I could hear Joshua in the background trying to calm her, but she kept going. "You've always been jealous of us. This is petty." I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "Brittany, I didn't choose this. Grandma did. And you called me useless, so don't talk to me about petty." I hung up, my heart pounding. Their desperation wasn't about family, it was about the house, the status, the control they thought they'd secured. I called Ryan that night, needing someone outside the mess. "They're freaking out," I told him, pacing my living room. "Dad's threatening lawyers, Mom's playing the guilt card, and Brittany's acting like I'm the villain." Ryan's voice was calm, steadying. "Ashley, they've treated you like garbage for years. You don't owe them a thing. What do you want?" I paused, staring out at the LA skyline. "I want to be done," I said finally. "I'm tired of fighting for a place they'll never give me." He didn't push, just said, "Whatever you decide, I've got your back." Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. Dad's threats, Mom's pleas, Joshua's texts about family unity. I stopped answering, letting them go to voicemail. Grandma Patricia called once, her voice warm but firm. "You don't have to forgive them," she said. "This house is yours to do what feels right." Her words settled something in me. I contacted a real estate agent in Philadelphia, one Ryan recommended from a past campaign. "I want to sell the house," I told her. Fast. She was efficient, professional, and within a week she had a buyer lined up, a young couple looking for a family home. The irony wasn't lost on me. I flew back to Philadelphia one last time to sign the papers. The house looked the same, its white columns standing tall, but it felt foreign now. Grandma Patricia met me at a coffee shop nearby, avoiding the family. "I'm proud of you," she said, squeezing my hand. "You're choosing yourself." I hugged her tightly, promising to stay in touch. Back in LA, I blocked Mom, Dad, Joshua, and Brittany's numbers. The silence was deafening, but freeing. The sale went through, and the money, over $700,000, hit my account. I didn't need it to feel rich. My life in LA with friends like Ryan who saw me for me was enough. Looking back, that dinner was the breaking point, but it was years of being sidelined that led me here. I learned something brutal, but true family isn't always the people you're born to. It's the ones who respect you, who don't make you beg for a seat at the table. I spent too long trying to fit into a house that never wanted me, letting their words chip away at who I was. My warning to you is simple. Don't cling to people who diminish you, even if they're blood. Walk away, build your own space, and find the people who lift you up. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Thank you for listening to my story. It's raw and it's real, and I hope it resonates with someone out there. If you've ever had to cut ties to protect your peace, drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Please like and subscribe to catch more of my journey. Your support means everything.